In a quiet town on the outskirts of a bustling city, rumors circulated about a mysterious craftsman who worked exclusively at night. No one knew his name, but everyone knew his work, the lifelike mannequins that appeared in store windows throughout the city. They were eerily perfect, with eyes that seemed to follow you and expressions so lifelike that they sent chills down your spine. One night, a woman named Lisa was browsing the dark web out of boredom when she came across a forum dedicated to urban legends. There, she found a thread about the Mannequin Maker, a dark figure who supposedly kidnapped people and turned them into mannequins. Skeptical but curious, Lisa followed the links provided in the thread and found herself on a dark web marketplace where someone was selling a mannequin transformation service. The listing included a short video as proof of authenticity. Against her better judgment, Lisa clicked on it. The video began with a view of a dimly lit workshop. A person, their face obscured by a shadow, was meticulously carving a mannequin's face. But as the camera zoomed in, Lisa noticed something horrifying. The eyes of the mannequin were moving, filled with terror. The horrific process, the camera panned to a table where a man was strapped down, struggling against his bonds. The craftsman walked over to him, holding a syringe filled with a glowing green liquid. The man screamed, but the craftsman silenced him with a swift injection. The man's body went limp, but his eyes were wide open, darting back and forth in terror. Then, with surgical precision, the craftsman began to carve the man's face. Blood poured from the wounds, but there was no sound, no movement, except for the man's terrified eyes. The camera zoomed in as the craftsman slowly peeled the man's skin, revealing the plastic-like material beneath. It was as if the man's flesh was being replaced with something synthetic, something inhuman. Hours passed, and by the end of the video, the man had been completely transformed into a mannequin. His eyes, still alive with horror, were the only thing that remained of his humanity. The video ended with the craftsman placing the mannequin in a store window, its lifeless eyes staring out into the night. The realization, Lisa was horrified. She tried to convince herself that it was all a sick hoax, but the next day, while walking through the city, she saw it, the mannequin from the video, standing in a store window. Its eyes were unmistakable, filled with the same terror she had seen the night before. From that day on, Lisa was haunted by the image of the mannequin. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and felt as if she was being watched at all times. Then, one night, she woke up in a cold sweat, unable to move. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed, holding a syringe filled with glowing green liquid. The next morning, Lisa's apartment was empty, and a new mannequin appeared in the same store window, its eyes wide with terror. In the hidden depths of the dark web, there was a website known as Echoes of the Forgotten. The site was said to contain audio recordings of people who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The recordings were rumored to be cursed. Those who listened to them would begin to hear the voices of the lost souls, eventually driving them to madness. The initial curiosity, a man named David, a skeptic by nature, stumbled upon the site late one night. He had heard the stories, but didn't believe in curses. The site was plain, with a list of audio files, each labeled with the name of a missing person. Out of morbid curiosity, David clicked on a file titled Sarah Thompson, missing since 2010. The recording began with static, followed by a faint, trembling voice. "If you're hearing this, please help me," the voice whispered. David's heart raced as the voice continued. "I'm trapped. It's dark, so dark. They're coming for me." The growing fear as the recording played, the static grew louder and the voice became more desperate. David could hear faint footsteps in the background, growing closer with each second. "They're here. Please, don't let them take me. Sarah's voice cracked, and then there was silence. But the recording didn't end. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, broken only by the occasional sound of shuffling feet and distant whispers. David felt a cold chill run down his spine as the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to be speaking directly to him, calling his name. He slammed his laptop shut, but the whispers didn't stop. They echoed in his mind, growing louder and more frantic. No matter how much he tried to block them out, they persisted, gnawing at his sanity. The haunting, that night, David couldn't sleep. He kept hearing the faint voice of Sarah, begging for help. The whispers followed him everywhere, growing louder when he was alone. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination, but the fear was too real, too intense. Days turned into weeks, and David's condition worsened. The whispers became screams, accusing him of ignoring their pleas for help. "You didn't save us. You left us to die," they would chant over and over. One night, the voices drove David to the brink. Desperate for peace, he returned to the dark website, hoping to find answers. But when he tried to access it, the site was gone. No trace of it remained. The recordings had vanished, leaving him alone with the echoes of the forgotten. The final descent, in a last-ditch effort to rid himself of the voices, David tried to record his own message, hoping that by doing so, he could pass the curse on to someone else. But as he began to speak, the whispers grew deafening, drowning out his voice. The last thing he heard before everything went dark was Sarah's voice, clear and cold. "Now you're one of us." David was never seen again. His apartment was found empty, with only a single audio file left on his computer. The file was labeled David Williams, missing since 2024. Those who dared to listen claimed they could hear David's voice, begging for help, lost in the echoes of the forgotten.